Here is the mystery. Onsen may look like a narrow subject, but one visible detail can open a much larger story. Instead of rushing through dates and labels, we are going to slow down and follow the evidence. Every factual statement in this episode comes from the public research attached to this project. The interpretation will stay clearly separate from those facts. Start with what can actually be seen, because that is where this part of Japan becomes specific rather than abstract. The first documented clue is simple. In Japan, onsen, pronounced ose, are hot springs and the bathing facilities and traditional inns around them. That point gives us a firm place to begin. Notice the concrete nouns, the setting, and the action in the sentence. Those details matter more than a broad claim about an entire country. A useful travel story does not say that everyone lived, dressed, ate, or behaved in one identical way. It asks what this particular example reveals, who it may have involved, and what still needs context before we draw a conclusion. Now add the second clue. There are approximately 25,000 hot spring sources throughout Japan, and approximately 3,000 onsen establishments use naturally hot water from these geothermally heated springs. Put it beside the first point and the subject starts to gain depth. The interesting part is the relationship between the two facts, not a dramatic claim added on top of them. Look for a change in purpose, appearance, place, or daily use. That contrast is often what makes a historical or cultural detail memorable. It also gives the visuals a job. Show the difference clearly enough that a viewer can understand the idea before the narration finishes the sentence. A third piece of the record says, onsen may be either outdoor baths, or rotenburo/notenburo, or indoor baths, uchiyu. This is where the story moves from a definition into lived experience. An object or custom becomes meaningful when we ask how a person would encounter it, use it, recognize it, or respond to it. We should still avoid pretending that one surviving example represents every region or social group. The safer and more interesting approach is to stay close to the documented detail, then let location, scale, texture, and human action make that evidence feel real. The next verified detail is this. Traditionally, onsen were located outdoors, although many inns have now built indoor bathing facilities as well. At first, it may seem like a side note. But side notes are often where the strongest visual storytelling lives. They reveal what was practical, noticeable, valued, or worth recording. Compare this point with the opening image and ask what has changed in your understanding. The answer does not need to be a sensational twist. A precise correction to our first impression is more satisfying, and it is far more trustworthy than turning a complicated subject into a single slogan. There is another useful clue in the source. Nowadays, as most households have their own baths, the number of traditional public baths has decreased, but the number and popularity of hot spring resort towns, onsen-gai, have increased since the end of Second World War. This is the moment to widen the frame without inventing a bigger claim. The detail can be placed beside streets, rooms, tools, photographs, landscapes, or people that belong to the same subject, while the narration stays anchored to what is documented. Variety in the images should clarify the idea rather than decorate it. When each shot answers a different question, the episode keeps moving and the viewer is rewarded with a new piece of understanding. One more part of the record helps connect the picture. Baths may be either publicly run by a municipality or privately, often connecting to a lodging establishment such as a hotel, ryokan, or minchaku. Taken together, the facts show why context matters. A label tells us what something is. Context helps us notice why it looked, worked, or mattered in that particular setting. This is also where we resist a familiar mistake in videos about Japan, treating an unusual image as proof of a universal rule. The stronger conclusion is narrower, more human, and easier to remember because the viewer has seen how each clue supports it. So return to Onsen with fresh eyes. The final source detail is, the presence of an onsen is often indicated on signs and maps by the symbol hot springs, the kanji, U, meaning hot water, or the simpler phonetic hiragana character, U. We began with a small mystery and ended with a method: observe first, verify the claim, compare the clues, and leave room for variation. That method makes travel more interesting because the ordinary surface is no longer empty. It carries evidence of choices, constraints, and change. The next time you see this subject in a museum, street, station, shop, photograph, or local story, what detail will you notice first?